Okay, welcome everybody. First off, welcome everybody to Opening Acts 2018. Thank you guys for all coming. We've obviously got some great panels lined up, so we're going to get going on the first of them. So before we just jump right into the topic at hand for it here, we'll do some introductions so you know who everyone is. First off, we'll probably just do name, what your current role is, and then maybe let's do what your first job in IT was, because that's sometimes interesting on where you were at, or first job in tech. So first off, I'm Mike Letchin. I'm currently the field CTO for Nexenta, and I did a web page for a financial aid office for my university. I think was the first one that was like a real tech job that wasn't just fixing somebody's computer randomly.
Hi, I'm Rick Creasy. My current job, I'm a VMware certified instructor. I teach for VMware and Global Knowledge. And in my first job in IT, I was doing phone support for dial-up internet customers. Goes way back. It was not fun, no.
Same.
Hey, I'm Keith Townsend. I'm a VMware. Hello. Hey, I'm Keith Townsend. I'm a VMware solutions architect for VMware. My first IT job was phone support, third shift, future traders. It was a proprietary data platform.
My name's Sean Massey. I'm a technical architect for Ahead, a consulting firm out of Chicago. My first tech job was building a database for a really small real estate company right after college.
My name is Rebecca Fitzhugh. I work in technical marketing at Rubrik, and my first IT job was I did cryptography in the United States Marine Corps.
I'll just share Rebecca's mic, it's fine. Hi, my name is AJ Kuftik. I'm a senior architect at Highmark. We are a Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance provider in the state of Pennsylvania and a couple other states. And my first tech job was doing PC support in a steel mill.
At a steel mill, huh?
Yeah, I don't recommend that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound. Yeah, hot, lots of random.
It's super fun when you have to wear flame retardant clothing to work.
Probably steel-toed shoes and everything.
Oh yeah, whole
nice.
thing. It's fun when they're bright orange and you go to Target after work in them.
So I know what really we wanted to kind of get into was where the things that, how'd you move to where you are kind of thing? What took you to the skills to get you into your current position, hence starting with what your first job was. So since you were at a steel mill, what got you out of the steel mill? We'll start with that. What were the skills that you thought that really needed to get you out of the steel mill?
There were technical skills and people skills they're two different things. The first one was starting to think through larger projects, starting to think through larger things. Even when you're doing PC support, you still have to do big things, replace PCs for production purposes, lease replacements, that sort of stuff, and starting to build through all of those various components and what needs to be done and timelines. That was a big deal. Also, the fear of everything around you usually drives you out first.
So you said you were doing phone support to start. Wow, that got really loud all of a sudden. You were doing phone support. So what got you away from the phones?
Well, what initially got me out was I got my CCNA in about 1999, and that was my first certification. And so that kind of set me up to take the next step and get into the networking team there. And then from there, I just kind of continued to work my way from there.
So certifications is an interesting one. What do you guys think? Are certs one of those skills that you have to move up now? Or what's your take on that? And just anybody jump in. No.
Yeah, so since my mic
no.
Whoa.
Yeah, baby. His mic works now.
It's new gear. New gear.
Get this guy a T-shirt for
yeah,
best mic handling, please.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? I don't think certifications are as critical as they.
I think you just went back out again.
Yeah, I don't think. Can you guys hear me? All right. So I don't think certifications are as critical today as they were when I started back in the mid-90s. I think the industry is shifting over from having those hard skills to softer skills.
I think it depends on what type of job you want, though, as well. right? A lot of corporations, you know, you may have to get a certification to kind of move to that next team, but there's other paths also to demonstrate that knowledge. If you work in any sort of consulting or professional services organization, your employers are incented to have certified people. And in order to advance and in order to get your company the better discounts and whatever else that comes with the different tiers of the partner programs, you have to have certifications. So in a way, having more certifications in those roles helps you advance your career.
So it helps you advance your career if you want to stay hands-on technical.
Well, not
with
necessarily
them,
even
or do you think outside of that too?
Outside of that too, because even if you're in a sales role, there's sales-specific certifications, or even just having the certifications helps the overall organization. But that's in one narrow part of the industry.
Yeah, so I spent most of my time on the customer side, and I think it was important for my partners, resellers, etc., to have certifications. But the team that I worked on, you know, you could be like literally you go into an organization, a customer side organization today, they can't tell you the difference between a VCP, a VCDX, or a vExpert. They're all the same thing to
true.
them. So vExperts rock.
So what I would say is that if you want to move forward in your career, it doesn't necessarily mean that certifications are bad. They can certainly be a goal that you work towards. There's certain things that you have to learn as part of that you might not see in your day-to-day operations. But if you're going to do it for you. Don't do it because there's going to be a pay raise at the end of that rainbow, because there usually isn't.
So you need it sometimes for the resellers. You might need a bonus or something involved if you're in-house for a shop. And what about for a vendor? Do you think working for a vendor, do the certs really matter at all? I have my opinion.
Well, my hiring manager is sitting right there, so that might be a better person to ask. I think no. I mean, for me, I've always kind of personally viewed certifications as being the metric to prove to myself that I attain the skills as a part of the studying. Because for me, I'll say I want to learn Azure, or I want to learn something, and if I don't give myself something to work towards, like a certification, I'm not going to do it. So it's more of what I'm learning in the studying process, and then I just do the test as the goal to work towards that actual certification itself.
So I purposely kind of kept you out of it for a second. As an instructor for it, it's helpful for you if people get certified.
Well, I would say two things, just to kind of piggyback off of what Rebecca just said. As somebody who's done a lot of hiring over the years, to me, what she said echoes why I like to hire people with certifications, because it shows that not necessarily that they just got certified, but that they had the ambition to do something to differentiate themselves. And I think it almost demonstrates more in that regard than it does actual technical knowledge, because, you know, lots of people, like you said, don't really know what each certification is, but it does demonstrate that they have some sort of ambition and have put extra work in to get to that point. So I think that's very valuable. And from an instructor perspective, I get asked all the time by my students, you know, is this certification going to get me a job? And I say, well, not necessarily, but it can't hurt, and it might help you get your foot in a door that otherwise you would not get your foot in, you know. So I would say, no, they're not a magic bullet to get you everything you want in your career, but they can be kind of the thing that gets you moving in that direction. And I think that's really the most valuable thing of all, is to get your foot in the door and get started.
So I think that goes on to the comment about soft skills a bit too. So even once you get in the door, you got to get through the interview process of some sort. How much of even getting in the door do you think is more networking and the people you know nowadays versus dropping it? I mean, how many people have actually gotten a job from putting their resume on Monster recently? Is Monster even still around?
Maybe.
There's a couple of them. I don't necessarily know that Monster is the biggest one anymore. Yeah. But no, I think networking in particular, knowing people, maintaining communications. So you're here, you're at VMworld, you're meeting a lot of people. There's a lot of people in this room right now that have the capability to help you along the way, and you're showing initiative that you want to be better in your career, that you're trying to do more. And if you start talking around the room, you can find out that there are people here from vendors, there are people here from partners, that can help you along that way. And I think that soft skills kind of goes a long way to what Keith was saying, is that if you have the soft skills to be able to, work a room and be able to talk to people and introduce yourself, that helps, or have people introduce you.
More thoughts on soft skills down there? Or
I think your soft skills have to at least be adequate enough for you to be able to verbalize the technical skills. If you can't sell yourself and what you can do, then, I mean, what's the
doesn't matter whether
Exactly.
you're
You
not
can be the
even going to get
smartest-
through the interview at that point.
You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't tell me how you did something, right, or describe a methodology, or you basically verbalize whatever technical thing that you did, then I don't know that you actually can.
And to build off that, the saying has always been, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But in our industry, I think it's what you know helps you meet new people in a lot of these cases, right? Because a lot of us up here on this panel, we're active in social media. We're all V experts. We're all, in some cases, people know who you are in some ways, right? And I don't want to make that sound, like, I'm getting full of myself or anything.
You're kind of a big deal.
But well, no,
You're
I'm
so
not.
famous.
But the point I'm trying to make is a lot of us, got to meet people because we were active on social media talking about technology, and then when we go to VMugs or go to conferences, it's like, oh, hey, I'm so and so. Yeah, I know who you are because I follow you on Twitter, or I read your blog, or you introduce yourself, going, hey, I've wanted to meet you because your blog has helped me. So what you know helps you meet new people.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten 2 jobs through Twitter, so social media works sometimes.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I quit my job via social media.
Is 6 working?
No.
Okay,
so,
here.
Again,
I thought we had it fixed.
that's okay.
I was wrong.
Really simple example of both ends of the soft skill, developing soft skill over a long career, and you knowing someone can help you overcome poor soft skills. Case in point, right after I graduated high school, no college, didn't have any kind of track on a job. So I went, the fast food restaurant route, applied for this Wendy's like 3 times, got interviewed, couldn't get the job, talked to my cousin who worked there, put in a good word for me. The manager came back and told me, like, you know what, Keith, I actually thought you were, I think the proper term is mentally undeveloped at the time that I interviewed you, just because I was soft-spoken, I was very timid, and because my cousin put in a good word for me, I got the job. That, you fast forward today, how many times have you seen people you're thinking, man, that guy really doesn't know what he's doing? It's all about who you know a lot versus your actual skill.
I'm still stuck on you being soft-spoken.
Hard lesson. You know what? Whenever I try and whenever I shrink back, this is my natural personality is to shrink back. I remember those words. They're burnt from a lot of years ago. Those words are burnt into the back of my mind. So I make sure not to do.
So that brings up the kind of that shrinking back into it. A lot of people consider themselves, whether they're introvert or extrovert, and a lot of people in this industry would really consider themselves normally an introvert. So if you're going to say, okay, you've got to step out of your box some, but what kind of advice would you give for them to be able to kind of, what can they do that isn't going to be overwhelming and just make it so much harder to do that networking and that next step to help their skill set?
Be friends with an extrovert.
Yeah.
I mean, go be friends with Ariel, and he'll take you to, he'll have you meet every single human in this room. Meet people who want you to meet people. Hey, this is Rebecca. You should totally talk to Rebecca. She's really great. Rebecca doesn't want to talk. But in terms of like,
she's kind of a big
you
deal.
start to introduce people and you start to make connections.
Do you have a question?
And maybe maybe you're an introvert, the other person's more or less an introvert, and you just don't really want to talk together. But you can have a conversation one-on-one versus being in a room with 20 people with a microphone in your hand. There's 2 separate ways to do that. And I don't think that necessarily that being an introvert that doesn't mean that you don't like being around people all the time. Sometimes it can mean that you really like to have one-on-one conversations or maybe very small group discussions. versus blathering on a stream. Of
Sitting
some
on a
sort.
panel just talking at people.
Yeah, that.
Well, I think like if you think about it, like I think I would consider myself an introvert. I think probably Sean would, just because
I'm
I know
definitely
Sean
one.
the best on the panel. And it's like, so when you think about it, it's like extroverts get energy from talking to people, and introverts lose energy from talking to people. So it's kind of knowing how much juice, if you will, you have in the bank, and not pushing yourself beyond that limit. Where like when I hit that social limit, I shut down. I'm done, and then I'm probably going to turn into a cranky 2-year-old approximately, where I'm like, I want to go home. So it's I need to know when I'm hitting that limit, and it's time to politely excuse myself and go home.
And I think your level of comfort with the people you're with also helps with that, right? Being with Ariel, he makes you feel very comfortable. He's very good at introducing you to people. So even as an introvert, it's not as taxing. Whereas if I'm alone in a room of 100 people and I have to introduce myself and walk up to people, that's a little bit harder. But now at a VMworld, I'm pointing at Rebecca because it's easy. But now at VMworld, you know more people, you're more comfortable with them, so it's easier to walk up and start the conversation. And then as somebody comes by, you know somebody, you can introduce them, or they know somebody, they introduce you. So it's just a different dynamic as you get more comfortable with the people in the community.
So I would add in that even if you're an extrovert, introducing yourself to someone you don't know is still terrifying.
Yeah, I definitely would consider myself an extrovert. It's still not the easiest thing in the world. Just randomly walk up to someone you don't know all the time. It's not that easy all the time. So not just on the networking, on the soft skills, but looking at career-wise on it, are things like working on your presentation skills. Would you guys consider that a valuable, more soft skill that people should be doing to grow their careers on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was really the key engine to me getting promoted into management, was working on my presentation skills. And I'm an introvert myself, but I've chosen a career that every week puts me in front of a new group of students. And it sometimes is challenging. What I would say is, like, the mantra that I adopted early on was, if you're uncomfortable doing something, the best thing you can do is just do it over and over and over again, and that's the only way to get over it.
Doesn't count for driving a car.
No,
if you're uncomfortable, get off the road.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I would do. So the way I became a trainer is developing my own training content in-house for the companies that I worked for. That was also how I got visibility and kind of separated myself from the pack. And, the more you do it, just the more comfortable it gets. And so by nature, similar to Rebecca, I don't like being in front of people, talking to a bunch of people, but eventually it starts to become comfortable to you,
What do you guys think about presentation skills?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what drives value to the business that you work for and the team that you're on. So it, for me, is equally important in my particular role to be able to get on stage and talk to 1,000+ people, as it is for me to be able to stand in front of my peers or my immediate team and justify an idea or ask for budget or to make other things happen. So to put it in perspective, not everybody has a role where they have to go stand in front of 1,000 people. So what's more important for you is not being able to necessarily get up on this panel and talk, but for you to be able to verbalize an idea to your team, get buy-in, and make that happen. That's what's really important. And to be honest, that's harder and scarier than bidding up here or being on a stage of 1,000 people. Because when you're on a stage of 1,000 people, I don't know any of you. And there's lights in my eyes. I can't see what's going on. When I have to stand up in a room full of my peers and my team, that's way scarier to me. Because they are going to be like, wow, she really is as dumb as we thought.
I can't overemphasize how important presentation skills are. As we start to accept that the industry is changing, there's going to be people who create, design, and run data centers, and there are going to be people who consume those data centers at a very high abstracted layer. So our ability to show via, look at the cool script or set of servers I ran or the automation I've created, starts to move away to us consuming these services, it's going to be a little bit tougher to show your value. So you have to go up and say, you know what, this is the value I bring. This is what we've done.
You're not being cocky by saying it, but you need to tell people what you're doing.
You got to tell people, like, what is that one guy that sits in the room all day? What does he do There's no servers anymore, so what exactly does he do? You need to be able to articulate what you do.
Yeah, I would expand it from presentation skills to communication skills in general. You need to be able to write it, because sometimes you don't get the shot to put it in on PowerPoint and stand in front of people and point at a screen and go, this is what we're going to do. Sometimes you got to write it in an email. Sometimes you got to write it in a document. Sometimes you have to put it on paper, or you don't get the chance to have visual aids with you or paper, and you got to stand there and explain it to somebody because you happen to catch them in the hallway. Communication skills, to me, are more important than technical skills, because all the stuff we learned 4 years ago, a lot of that stuff has gone by the wayside. Or things that are coming in the future are not what we were doing before. And so you have to be able to iterate on those technical things, but communication skills will take you forever.
And you have to be able to iterate and communicate that to multiple audiences as well. You're not just going to be communicating to peers. Sometimes you're going to be communicating to management. Sometimes you're going to be communicating to end users. And you have to be able to set your tone and, you know, pick the right words and right method of communication for your target audience.
Can I give you an example?
It needs to be to the right audience, too. Learning how to write those emails or write that letter to the right audience that you're writing for. If you're writing to an exec, it's a different level than if you're writing it to a bunch of admins.
So my wife is a communications person, and she saw the very first like VMware design presentation I was doing, and she said, "What is that, and why are you telling people that?" And I said, "Well, it's this technical thing, and it's this thing that's going to make things better." She's like, "Yeah, and where are you saying that? Because all of this is just gigs of RAM and mumbo jumbo. Has nothing to do with anything. Who are you presenting this to?" I was like, "The senior manager of infrastructure." And he goes, "Yeah, does he care about any of that?" "No." "Change it all. Rewrite the whole thing." And so that night I had to rewrite the whole thing, and then I gave her back a different one that had nothing to do with technical things, all around business objectives. That sort of thing sticks in the back of my mind when I'm writing things to try and elaborate as to what audience am I going for. Am I talking to my team or my technical peers? Yeah, some of those details might matter. But to somebody up the food chain who is paying for things or is interested in why this design is important, they don't care about how many gigs of RAM we're putting on a SQL box. They care about why we need to put more gigs of RAM on the SQL box.
Likewise, if you're communicating to end users, they don't care about any of that. They just care, how long am I going to be impacted for, and what's the change going to be?
Right.
And then for those of us at different points in our career, it's the inverse. So when I find myself talking to engineers and I'm talking digital transformation, blah, 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 they're like, what? How does that have to do with why should I upgrade to the latest version of vSphere? I don't like 5.5 seems awesome. Like, why should I go to 6.7?
Working just
right.
fine. What am I getting out of it? Right.
And what does digital transformation have to do with me meeting my MBOs and whatever else?
So I think one of the other things on those soft skills is how you present yourself in general. And how do you want people to view? Sometimes it's just be a little more cleaned up on what your style is. It's that dress for the job you want, not the one you have thing.
There's a reason I'm wearing this on a plane at 7 in the morning. I didn't do it because I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted to look professional. I wanted to be able to project a level of professionalism and a level of knowledge. And this is effectively my confidence suit, right? I'm more than happy to wear t-shirt and shorts to things, but if this is what I feel comfortable standing in front of an audience and speaking authoritatively about something, this is what goes on my body.
Do you guys think that it matters? You obviously do. The rest of you, do you think what you're wearing that day matter as much?
I think it may not matter so much to your audience. For me, confidence in presenting and talking to people comes from preparation. You know, if you are very well prepared, it gives you a sense of confidence going into that interaction. And for me, part of that preparation is wearing clothes that I'm going to feel comfortable being in front of that audience in. So I kind of view it as more of a holistic approach. I want to, have my notes ready. I want to look very well prepared, and I want to dress that part too. And yeah, I think it can't hurt. Nobody ever said you dress too well.
Sean, or either or Keith.
So I'll say don't do what Sean does here. This is the caveat to start with. Shorts.
It's really hot out there. I won't wear shorts today.
Well,
I have to be dressed
I'm
the
not
whole rest
alone.
of the week.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
So I've gone into workshops with customers that have had executives in them, and I've worn, on occasion, a hoodie and jeans because I'm the engineer doing the architecture, and that's what I'm comfortable in. And I've had some customers that haven't cared, and I've had others where it's been a big issue. And it just really depends on the culture of the company, right? Some companies have a very laid-back culture. Others don't. And part of being prepared is knowing what that is and making sure you're properly debriefed. So in my role as a consulting architect, if I'm not properly prepared, I can make a mistake like that. And while I'm comfortable, the customer's not.
And then from a diversity standpoint, that goes completely out the window for minorities and women. You should very much be aware of what you have on in every situation, because unconscious bias is already at work. So if I come in with a hoodie and jeans, frankly, they might call security on me. So it just is what it is.
I told you I was sorry. It was one time.
You know what?
It was one time.
One time's a mistake. But seriously, the minorities and women, literally, unfortunately, we do have to worry about how we present ourselves, because there's just you want to take away those unconscious biases as much as possible. And so you do. I'm a little bit more well known in this community, but this isn't typically what I would wear on a panel.
Yeah, I would not normally ever wear shorts on a panel.
Yeah,
like this.
there you go.
But what's your thought on that, Rebecca, coming from the female perspective on that?
I don't have a comment.
No comment. So getting off of the soft skills then for a bit. Obviously, tech skills are still going to matter. If somebody's looking today on what those things they should be looking at to learn, start researching what technology really should they be looking at versus some of this can just kind of gloss over it, know what it is, but maybe you don't need to spend a lot of focus on it. It's not going to be there in the next year or two.
I would focus less on specific technologies and think more along just general systems thinking, right? Even if you go back to legacy vSphere or you go towards cloud things, doesn't really matter. Thinking about everything in terms of the overall system and not just this one little thing that you really care about. Like a vCenter upgrade is not terribly hard anymore. It really isn't. It's all the stuff around it that's the hard part. Sometimes you got to deal with other people. Sometimes you got to deal with other teams, other vendors, waiting for their code to come out. Those sorts of things are the harder part, and thinking about all of the inputs and outputs of the system that you're trying to work on and what it is that you need to do is exceedingly important. And I find that that's the big leap. When you're an engineer and you can start thinking in overall systems and overall builds and not just on the deep dive technologies on things. Because I'll be really honest, I understand the interactions between all of our various pieces in our infrastructure. Do I know them all very deeply? No, I won't even claim to know that. It's not about knowing those things as deeply as possible. It's about knowing how everything kind of works together and then working with the right people who know them deeply. Because some people care. Some people want to know how deep they can go on something like NSX, or they want to go super deep on something like vSAN. Great. I just need to know if it's going to go boom when I upgrade, and when it goes boom when I upgrade. And I don't want it to go boom, so I have to think about all the things that go around it and coordinate that with all those people. And that comes back to the soft skills as well. Communication as well.
I would agree with the architect perspective there. I mean, obviously, if you're an engineer level person, knowing the exact nuts and bolts is kind of the job. So then you do need to be able to dive deep. But I think, like, from the architect perspective, dead on. Because you need to be able, as an architect, to kind of zoom out and be able to look high level as to what is the framework tying everything together and be able to dive deep within certain facets. But I don't necessarily need to be as deep in that particular realm as the actual SME. But that SME ideally can kind of zoom out a little bit, but it's more important for them to know the actual inner working. So I think it's really relative to the role.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Systems thinking and how the systems go together and how they talk to each other is going to be really important, especially as we start moving into this multi-cloud, hybrid cloud world where you have different pieces and different platforms. It's going to be less about the technology and more about consuming it. The other thing I would say to that, and this is probably more of a soft skill than a hard skill, is you have to know how to learn. And you have to know your learning style and how you can learn something quickly, because even as an architect, you're going to be put into a situation where, you know, somebody's going to walk in and say, the dev team wants to use Kubernetes for this project, right? And you have to understand, you have to be able to learn whatever technology it is really quickly so you can slot it into the rest of your architecture, or come back and say, no, we can't use this for this reason.
So I'm going to put the business analyst hat on a little bit and say that it depends, the consultant answer. Sometimes you can say, okay, I'll look at a concrete technology and deep dive into that technology. The way you discover if that's important to you or not, find out what it is that if you're happy in your job and your director, VP, what is it that they're either excited about or keeping them up at night or they're constantly talking about? If they're constantly talking about cloud and cloud readiness,
Go learn cloud.
All on cloud. You need to understand from a high level, what type of cloud are they talking about? Are they talking about, oh, we've installed a vSphere 6.7 environment and now we have cloud? Are they talking about, oh, we've gone completely off-prem and we have all of our stuff in VMC on AWS? Or are they talking about refactoring the applications? And this goes back to, I used that buzz term, digital transformation above. What are the business objectives? If one of your competitors won the CIO of the Year award, what are they doing? If they're doing something in a specific technology, that's an indication of where you need to probably pick it up yourself in learning or acquiring a specific technical skill.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with everything everybody here just said. I would say don't lose focus on some of the less hot technologies, because that's what people have right now. So nobody wants to say, hey, focus on vSphere. Focus on, can you configure a Cisco router, or can you read a config of a firewall? Because those are things that are fairly common skills, but those might be the things that are keeping that manager up at night, and he's going to need somebody to come put out that fire. And the other thing that I would throw out there, probably the skill that served me best, is just knowing how to troubleshoot. Having a clear troubleshooting, problem-solving methodology that you can apply universally to whatever problem may arise. Because if you're the guy that can go in there and just fix whatever's broken, say, I've hardly even touched this, but I've got the internet, I've got Google, and I've got my troubleshooting methodology or my problem-solving methodology. Having a concrete kind of ethos about how to do that stuff, I think, is an extraordinarily valuable skill to have.
So, Sean, you mentioned education while you were giving your answer there. So how important is traditional education to people in IT today?
Ooh, that might be a very loaded question.
You're on a panel that they're supposed to be.
Yes.
That's the point of a
Yeah,
panel.
no, because no. So a traditional education, I think, is important because, like, when you think about the traditional liberal arts education, it's designed to challenge you and teach you how to develop opinions and how to think, right? And how to, develop some, methodologies for solving problems and analyzing different things, right? We also, in our field, the traditional liberal arts education is also looked down upon in a lot of ways because it's all this, soft, touchy-feely stuff. But some of the most successful people I know are people who don't have a technical degree, who got a liberal arts education, and who were able to apply their skills there to solve technical problems. Because you can learn the technical stuff pretty easily. There's all sorts of methods out there between books and courses and Pluralsight and YouTube videos and whatever your learning style is, there's a way to accommodate it. It's just knowing how to learn and how to absorb new knowledge quickly and how to apply that knowledge is what's going to set you apart. And there's a really good book on it I read a couple months ago. I can't think of the name of it right now.
So great reference.
And I bring the bad questions.
But it's about that concept of, the softer, skills, the more critical thinking skills versus the hard technical skills.
You look very intrigued to answer down there.
Well, I was just, I feel like Sean just outed my liberal arts education, but okay. I think, like, we focus too much on having the certification or having a degree. And I think traditional education is very important. but I don't think it's important that you necessarily have a college degree or a master's degree or a PhD. It's about having the skill set. So for example, kind of goes back to communication. If you cannot clearly verbalize or write in a clear and concise manner, right? So if you don't have those basic skills, then it's gonna be harder. It's gonna be harder for you. So it's not about necessarily getting a college degree and having that, but about having a basic education.
What you go through to get the degree
Yeah.
is the part that matters.
I mean, I look at like my niece and my nephew, and my niece is always just like, ugh, I'm just gonna take this class to do this because I have to fulfill this requirement and do that. And I'm like, kid, it's about learning what your STEM class is teaching you, not getting the credit. We kind of focus on the wrong thing, I think, a lot of the time.
So I have 2 of those degrees. Don't do that. I have 2 of those degrees. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Don't do that.
I have both also.
I mean, the thing is, all of the things, at least from a distinct technical standpoint that you learn in college, gone in like 5 years, right? But coming back to Rebecca's point, it's learning what's in there and learning how to learn. Being able to sit down and actually choke down a database class when you don't really care about databases. Those sorts of things are important.
So if somebody is currently already in the workforce, people watching this, you're saying taking the time to go now to go to school to go get your bachelor's would or would not be worth it?
Well,
So can I answer that question? Because I was in that
care
situation.
which one of you answers.
10 years in, the network engineer making pretty decent money, went into my manager's office. There was a managerial position open. And again, this is one of those minority teen answers. You say, I really want this job. And he said, you know what, Keith, besides this just not being a good world for you, I'm going to give you some painful but good advice. He said, I don't know if you've noticed, and I didn't notice until that time, you're black.
surprise.
Really?
One, that explained a lot up to that point for me. And then 2, he said, you need to take
I didn't even
away
know.
every excuse for why you can come into my office, ask for this job, and not get this job. So it was 2 practical things that I learned from that. One, you're absolutely right. You can acquire all these skills without a traditional college degree, college program. However, there's artificial roadblocks, whether you're a minority or a majority. There's these HR policies. You know, you cannot become a PwC consultant without a college degree, period. You can't become a Lockheed Martin systems engineer without a college degree, period. Right. I invested over $100,000 getting both my undergrad and master's, regret nothing. I would not be on this stage without it.
I'm the same on that. I wouldn't go back on getting even my master's even at all. My bachelor's has nothing to do with tech at all, but at least my master's is an MBA, so it was the business side of it and the soft skills.
I would say, though, that there's now, as somebody who graduated college not that long ago, it's very, very expensive. I'll just say that right now. And that's my hesitation on pushing people to go do more than one degree or even do a degree in the first place.
Sure.
I think there's a level of communication skills that you can get without diving that deep. But I would also love to see HR policies like you're referring to start to fall in terms of why people need to have bachelor's degrees or master's degrees in order to hold certain roles, because it's not true. Especially if you can't judge somebody who's got 10 years of experience on your team saying, I want that role. You don't have a degree, sorry. I've proven everything you need. Why can't that happen? That's the sort of thing that's where I'm coming from on it.
Yeah. So you live in the cert world. What do you think as far as for traditional versus certs?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess my number one thing I would say is go take an official VMware course, selfishly. But no, in reality, I guess it all depends on your situation. I mean, college is so expensive these days. And if you're already in a position where you are trying to move up, what I would encourage you to do is before you start forking out the money for that education, he's absolutely right. If you work for Lockheed Martin, you can't get there without that degree. There's no way. So it all depends on your environment. But if you work for some other organization, think about the amount of time and effort and money you're going to put into college and say, what if I were to take that same time and effort and put that into differentiating myself at my job, and make that investment of, I know it's never a popular thing to say, putting that extra time into my work where I'm already at, you know, to show that I can differentiate myself from the crowd, you know, and that might even be, you know, it's different for every situation, I would say, but college is just so expensive these days that I think there are just so many avenues to learn that if you don't have to demonstrate a particular degree to move up, then there's probably other ways to make that happen.
Sean, you got something?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, a degree is a piece of paper. It says I completed so many credit hours to show my mastery of, my basic mastery of whatever the subject is, based on whatever the curriculum was. And it's a certified thing that's, you know, credentialed by an organization that says, yes, I learned something and I was able to graduate, right? It's not necessarily about what the piece of paper is, although for some organizations that's very important. I think what it is more, it's more about what you pick up along the way. You know, and to go back to AJ's point here, you said you probably wouldn't recommend going to college. I would agree with you from a technical course standpoint, right? There's a lot of technical courses. When I graduated college in 2005, they were obsolete 2 years after I graduated. You know, there was some common terminology I was able to take out that was able to help me communicate with other people in the organization. So like the database class was helpful for talking to database people to a point, because it's all high-level concepts in class. But what was really useful was the things like the business courses, you know, having to take accounting and marketing and writing classes, and even things like English Lit, where, you know, there's more to it than just technical stuff. There's more business skills. There's more soft skills. So if you're at a point in your career where you're thinking, okay, I want to move out of being a technical person, you know, maybe a 4-year degree is not the right path, but look at, there's 2-year colleges. You know, if you want to grab business skills, you can go take classes there. You can go spend time shadowing your accounting people. You know, there's other methods to learn business skills and learn in particular, your business processes than just getting a 4-year degree.
So Rebecca, and then I think he has one too, so you're done.
At the end of the day, if you want to get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, if that is a goal for you,
go do it.
Then you do it. That is the entire reason I joined the Marine Corps, was to get a college education. There was no higher patriotic calling. It was, I want to go to college, and that opportunity is not there for me. And that is a goal. And if you set a goal like that, just do it. Don't let anything or anyone stop you.
And to that end, and kind of in the same vein, she went to the Marine Corps to get the college education. A lot of companies offer tuition reimbursement. So if you're already in a position at a company, check into your company's tuition reimbursement and see if there's any opportunity for you to at least get some of that cost back. My brother-in-law just went through an MBA program. They paid for half of it.
They paid for all of mine.
Right.
That's how I got my MBA.
There's a
the
number
company I
of
was
people
working for
I know
paid for the whole thing.
who have full degrees and didn't pay a dime for them because they got into the field, worked their way up, and then said, okay, now I want to go get this degree. Now tuition reimbursement, that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking and you're trying to go get a new degree, or you're trying to change skill sets, look into tuition.
So I got to wrap us up here, coming down. So I'm going to go down. And what's the one skill that each of you think somebody should really work on to try to further their career in the next 6 to 12 months? Something they can do short term before VMworld next year.
Oh boy, I got to go first.
We start on either end.
Start in the middle. I tweeted this advice a couple of weeks ago. If you're thinking, you know what, I'm beyond the point where I need a home lab, but I have a couple of grand in my budget that I usually spend on a home lab, that's weird that in our industry we have a couple of $1,000s to spend on some SS computer equipment in our home. Think, you know what, should I go to a conference like SAP Sapphire or Oracle Open World or Oracle World and experience what business users are talking about versus the lens of IT infrastructure folks? Get a completely different lens of the stuff that I build is used for something down the line that I had no clue what it is, and these types of conferences are eye-opening as far as it gives you a completely different perspective of the value that you bring to the organization.
Okay.
So to build off of what Keith said, I agree but I'm going to say go down a different path. Instead of going to like an Oracle or an SAP where you're seeing how others use the technology, dive deeper into your organization. Spend time, talking to the people there, shadowing them, see how they use the technology and understand their processes. Because, you can come back to it and go, okay, hey, here's the problem we're seeing with this application. Here's what the user feels. Here's how we fix it. And then you have a better rapport with the people in your organization and a better understanding of how that technology is really used.
Sure. I guess I'm going to kind of give a wishy-washy answer, but I would say it really depends on what your situation is. And you want to kind of look at your organization, or maybe it's not your organization, but just look where you want to be. And I've always had a 2 to 3 year plan in any job I've been in. This is where I want to get. These are the skills that are going to get me there. And having an accurate, you can put as much work into, which I kind of look at it like digging a hole. Well, if you're digging a hole in the wrong place, that hole's not going to do you any good. You got to have a strong compass as to where you're headed, and then think carefully about what are the skills that are going to get me there. Are they presentation skills? Are they, and then do it in a manner, and this is going to sound like something you might feel like a little bit of a kiss up when you do this, but do it in a manner that's visible to the people that you're looking to impress, because they don't see it that way. From management's eyes, they don't see it as somebody kissing up. It's very hard to know when somebody's kissing up to you, but it's very easy to see when somebody's doing something in a visible manner that's improving their skill set, and it's a hole that you need to fill.
Down to the end, to the last two.
So I would say two things on the technology side of the house. He's giving me a dirty look, so the second answer is now going to make fun of him. So the first answer on the technology side of the house, I would say familiarize yourself with something on the programming side of things. I think it's inevitable. We started talking about systems thinking and systems design. There's no way that at some point in time in the next 5 to 10 years that you're not going to be consuming more APIs, that you're not going to be more focused on creating a singular software fabric across your data center. That's where we're moving to. So no one's asking you to become a software engineer tomorrow, but start learning some of the basics. On the soft skills side of the house, I would say being able to answer things in a short way, because I had a particular VCDX partner that when you would ask a question, for example, justify this design decision, would just go immediately to 300 level. And that's what we naturally do as technologists. So I want to just dig in and get nerdy with you. But that doesn't really answer the question as to why this was the best choice for the business. So if you can practice, if you think kind of answering a question for starting at the 100 level, and then if needed, then go to 200, and then if needed, then go to 300, that's going to save you a heck of a lot of time rather than diving deep and getting into all the nerdy nuts and bolts without actually answering the question of why are we even using this technology to begin with.
So I'm just going to not make Rebecca mad. Step one. What I have a number of people that are on my team that I've more or less started handing tasks to. And that's mostly because what I'm looking to do is, even for myself, is starting to pick up more of the business side of things and actually learning, okay, here's how this actual budget works. Here's how this entire budget process works. Here's what people are actually looking for. This is what they're looking to hear. Here's the direction. And if there isn't a direction, figure out how to go set that. So from an engineer to architect standpoint, if you have a mentor or there's an architect in your organization that you work with, reach out to them and say, hey, can I help? Can I sit down with you and kind of walk through what you're doing? Or kind of sit down and kind of go through the thought process here, because here's what I'm seeing. What do you think? And try to get that feedback as to what they're thinking and how their thought process works. Because sometimes we make decisions not based on technology. We make decisions based on business. Sometimes those decisions are good, and some of them are bad. But a lot of times it's a matter of knowing why you're making that decision, and that is why you sit down and talk with people who are making those decisions, and it helps you understand, okay, next time I need to make a decision, here's what I need to do differently. Or here's how I want to sell this next time.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. We need to wrap up for this panel. We'll have about 10 minutes and then start the next panel or so. Oh, but before we do that, are you coming? Is it Rick? Okay, come on up. As we wrap up this one, as you guys know, the only reason we're able to do all these is because of the great sponsors that have helped us along the way. And Veeam has been one of those with us for many years now, for a real long time. So I'm going to turn it over for about 5 minutes here. You need to come over here so you're actually on the camera, though.
Oh, on the camera. Oh, this is a camera.
That's the camera. It's,
All right.
That's not.
I didn't wanna
that's not an Alexa. It's
well,
actually
I mean,
a camera.
Oh, okay, Google. No.
So fancy.
No, just great panel, guys. What a great way to get started with the event. I took some notes, and I'm Rick Vanover from Veeam, and you know we take community really seriously, and I love the cross opinions here. Most of the time, I agreed with all you guys. You know, a couple of head nods, yes. Not a few, not too many, no. But I think when you guys look at VMworld and just the fact that each of you that are here, this is a great opportunity, you know. When we think about our day-to-day lives, our practitioners, whether we're an IT pro, like an end user type, or if we work for a brand of some sort, you know, you look to your left and your right, there's 2, 3, 4, maybe even more colleagues that couldn't make the trip here, right? So this is an opportunity. So, you know, really take good effort to capitalize on it. You know, I know a lot of you are regulars, and I enjoy that, you know, seeing everybody. It's kind of like a homecoming of sorts. And I'll go so far as to say that it's a very long road, but it's a small world, you know, and, you know, network like these individuals advocated to you. But when I think about the value of this opportunity you have, this is where, you know, from a career standpoint, we can do more with what we are doing. And whether it's our day-to-day responsibilities, you know, for me, it's around data protection, backup, and the like. But, you know, you look at how you get to where you are. Is it education? Is it a credential? Is it experience? You know, those were all brought up here. But then there's the X factor, and that's you as an individual. What are you going to do different, bring to the community, bring to your own career? Those are the opportunities that a lot of us don't yet know what those are. So, you know, maybe you'll find it this week. Maybe you'll find it at another event. Maybe you're already working on it. So cheers to that. And I think that when you find that extra element, that extra edge that will really define your IT career, you know, maybe that's an opportunity to push into something new. And so I know that the next content that we have up, correct me if I'm wrong, my disappearing host, is around multi-cloud. Is that right? Yeah, I think it is. I did read the agenda correctly. So, like, you know, I can't underemphasize the cloud. I think that the cloud is, it will be the new computer, if not already. And I talk to enterprises every day that, you know, the A word comes up, one of those 2 A words comes up every single time. So my advice there for what's next around multi-cloud and other matters is just go deeper and further. And, you know, the result is that, and this is what I tell my team, by the way, I tell them, make your work or your result be the natural choice, meaning make your perspective, your expertise, your knowledge, your skill, your script, whatever it is, make it absolutely the best choice for whatever matter it is. So it takes some work to get there, right? So if whatever that next new thing is, maybe it's cloud, maybe it's storage, networking, whatever it is, modern app systems, that's your opportunity. And then the other thing to highlight is, you know, when you look at your career, I've learned a lot about myself in a career, and I hope that everyone else has as well. And what I mean by that is you have to know what you want out of a job. Now, you could say, I want to work with XYZ company. I want to make $1, $2, $3. Oh, hey, Dave. Nice to meet you. I want to do whatever. But you have to be able to cut that into very specific things. Like, for example, myself. I need variety in what I do. I cannot sit and do the same thing every day. I need technical challenges, and I need to work with different people, and I need to have some flexibility. Now, I could probably do that anywhere, but it took me a whole bunch of other places where I didn't have that to learn what I do want. And, you know, if any of you have ever had to hire people, you kind of learn a lot about yourself when you hire other people, which is kind of interesting. So all that being said, be prepared to change. You know, this week might be part of that. I think that whatever that next change is, you know, be ready for it. And the last kind of closing thought is, you know, like Mike said, Veeam's been a sponsor of this for a while. You know, VM Underground, where the bar gets a little bit more busier because it won't be pay per drink at that point. We're happy to have sponsored that. But if you need something to do on Tuesday night, there's a Veeam party that you can join as well. I tweeted out a link on Friday, but then also if you want, just bug me here at maybe the break. I'll be happy to hook you up with the Eventbrite low registration for that. And, you know, by the way, one thing that wasn't done was, you know, for everyone here, let's give a big round of applause for Mike, for Brian Knutson, and then Jim Millard. These three guys, you guys have no clue what it takes to put this together. It's boiling point, it's edge stepping, whatever you want to call it. It's some work, and these guys have done it as long as I've been around VMworld. You guys have been doing it. Yeah. Is this the 10th year? 12. Crazy talk. Anyways, happy to sponsor. Thanks for letting me have a few words, Mike.
Of course. So everybody please give it up for Veeam. Thank them.